I think my short film makes sense, but at the same time, I don't want people to fully understand the plot. I wanted to focus on the subject matter. I think by making it a bit mysterious, I would capture the attention and the imagination of my audience. I think my short film looks like a real one. I think this because it fitted the codes and conventions of a short film. Short films are supposed to be more artistic, with framing and angles, than mainstream films, and a better camera would have given me a better result. I'm sure I avoided school as a location, because this would have made it look as if I didn't plan my locations properly, and just used what was available. Various locations, including a park, a country lane, the downs, and my bedroom. I used these locations to show a rural setting, and I used a rural setting because I think it makes it more relevant to the storyline. Erica can feel more alone, giving the short film an eerie feel. Off Your Rocker was about breaking boundaries and stereotypes. My aim was to educate and change people's opinion on schizophrenia, so I have challenged the way people think about the illness. I did this by using a stereotypical character type, so my audience could identify with her. I haven't changed the medium, but the way schizophrenia is represented. However, I stuck to some codes and conventions of short films, having two characters, a twist to keep it interesting, and following everyday situations. As a director and a writer, I want to challenge my audience and the perception of the mental health illness. I filmed a shot where the camera moves in a 360-degree pan shot all around Erica with the wind blowing in her hair. The expression is blank, so we don't know what she's thinking. I used isolated locations as a representation of Erica's illness. I also used lots of small jump cuts throughout the film to echo her erratic state of mind. I do think that I've achieved the effect I was going for because my audience feedback shows my audience. I particularly liked the last 2 minutes of my short film because of how the remote location enforces the idea Erica is alone. I used some music which had little instruments and just a woman singing to add to this effect. I used the concept of Erica identifying with Juliet from Romeo and Juliet because she's a very well-known character. This is a GCSE exam piece, so I knew my target audience would know who she was. Juliet felt alone because she could only tell the nurse about Romeo, just as Erica can only talk to Juliet, but the difference is Juliet is a figment of Erica's imagination. I spent a lot of time finding and editing the soundtrack, and I ended up using 2 different tracks. One was written and played by my friend, and the other was a pre-existing track which I had to write to the company for permission. And once I found the right tracks, it was really easy to put it into my short film, because I think the soundtrack played the most because it made it more interesting and helped represent Erica's state of mind. To get an idea about how to go about getting the typical type of music to fit the codes and conventions of a short film, I needed to analyse other short film soundtracks, and I found that they can vary quite a lot. In Coming of Age, the music played a big part and there was almost no dialogue at all, but Photo had lots of, not much music, but quite a lot of sound effects. Of camera shutters and footsteps, which helped emphasise the idea that the main character was being followed and watched. I used Shakespearean music at the beginning to make my audience wonder why from the very start. Then I used very little dialogue to reinforce the idea Erica is alone. It also represents another aspect of schizophrenia. The sufferer can sometimes hear voices, but sometimes they'll be fine. I decided I wanted my short film to be slow-paced. If it was fast-paced, then I wouldn't have been able to dwell on the moments that I thought were most important. I think the most important scene was in the park. This is because this is where the most hallucinations took place. I've used a variety of short and long edits to emphasise the moment. For instance, when Erica's sitting on her bed and she glances at the clock. Then I cut away to the clock and a point of view shot to show the time, and then I cut back to Erica's face. Later on, I use a long shot with lots of short jump cuts to represent Erica's erratic state of mind. I think the combination of my main product and ancillary tasks works well together and helped supplement my short film. I found the poster really hard to get right because I wanted it to be relevant and to have meaning as well as look good. I think I achieved this after many attempts. I found the review okay to write, but found the layout difficult to make professional. I think that both my ancillary tasks now look relevant and good. I looked at many short film posters and their coinciding films to see how to relate them. I created a house style by using similar fonts on my short film and poster, as well as the same types of colours on the images. I used a lot of green to mimic the green landscape, and a cool colour palette to give the feeling of coldness. This poster worked better than my first one, because the flowers didn't really help convey the feeling of the short film. I also used the same production logo on my poster and my short film. House style is important so my audience understand that all the products were related. Film posters are supposed to advertise the film, so people have to know that my ancillaries and the main product are all part of the same thing. In my audience feedback, all the interviewees could tell that the ancillaries were related to the main product. From my audience feedback, I have learned to get the desired results. I need to first see if my audience understand, and I want to know what they all thought of the film. I need to see if my audience understand, and I need to know what they think all the way through. The short film was to inform and entertain audiences, so I want to make sure that they liked it. I did lots of feedback all the way through the planning, filming and editing processes. I did pre, interim and post feedback to get the necessary information needed to improve. I took what everybody said into consideration and made changes to my short film to make it better and easier to understand. For feedback, I used a variety of different methods, including SurveyMonkey, an online survey making tool, hard copy surveys, one-to-one interviews, and the comment box on YouTube. With the information I got, I could see which areas I was strongest and which areas I was weakest at, and then use the information to help make my weaker areas better. At first I had a walking scene which was almost 2 minutes long, which showed Erica on a journey getting more and more frightened. I decided to cut this down to about 10 seconds because it took up too much time and confused my audience. The only improvement I'd make at this stage is to make the static text at the end a few seconds longer and the production logo shorter. This is because I want people to remember the statistic. Apart from this minor detail, I'm happy with my short film, Off Your Rocker. I also cut out minor things like an extra toothbrushing shot and of Erica getting dressed because they weren't relevant. Audience feedback is really important to me because I feel strongly about the subject I was talking about. I need my audience to grasp the concept of a short film, otherwise there would be no point of making a short film no one understood. I used new digital technologies like digital video cameras, Blogger and editing softwares. I liked filming my feedback so I could watch it back and improve my production. The editing software I used was Windows Movie Maker 2003. And although it was an outdated version, I found it worked for what I needed it to do. I also looked and used online tools like SurveyMonkey and SlideShare to present my information in different ways. And then I posted them all onto my blog. I've learnt lots of new and useful ICT skills all through the research and planning, filming and editing processes. I also learnt how to create video and audio podcasts. I think my short film would have been better if the quality of the camera was improved. Cheaper digital cameras give a much less clearer picture and the image comes out a little bit grainy.